Hello, I'm Bill Smithers. My experience as a professional actor in film and television and theater began in 1950. My experience as a director began in 1969. I've been a member of the Actors Studio since 1952. Lee Strasberg, who was artistic director of the Actors Studio and who died in 1982, is perhaps the most prominent figure in 20th century America in the field of actor-director training. He is world-renowned for his development and his extension of the work of the great Russian theater practitioner Constantin Stanislavski. Lorrie Hull, whose work this tape is based on, and who was a master teacher at the International Stanislavski Conference in Paris in 1988, taught for Lee Strasberg for 12 years, eventually becoming his senior faculty member. She is the only instructor ever asked by Lee to organize and teach the course, Understanding of the Method. Ms. Hull currently teaches privately in Santa Monica, California.
I am pleased to be talking to Martin Landau, one of our finest American actors and an Academy Award-winning actor.
Well,
Welcome, Marty.
Thank you, Lorrie. I'm very happy that you're putting these tapes up because I've read this book and it's excellent.
Here's the ET Digest for Wednesday, the 29th of October. New in the bookstore, Strasberg's Method as taught by Lorrie Hull.
It actually, I have read the book and I do think it's of great value. Along with, you know, I mean, it's a staple. It's clearly something that, you know, one can find in bookstores along with An Actor Prepares and the Stanislavski books. And I think it's buy the tape, read the book, and use them in conjunction with each other.
That's what we're hoping. And I have to tell you, when I was a master teacher at a Stanislavski conference in Paris, his granddaughter had the book. And so did the people from the Moscow Art Theater. And when she asked me to sign her book, I said, your grandfather was the grandfather of all of us professionally.
It's true.
And I think that's true. All of our work is based on Stanislavski's discoveries.
Which is something I think that the book that Strasberg's Method clarifies, is that people tend to associate the method with certain kinds of actors, let's say, with brilliant,
with
wonderful
actors,
with Brando, with Jimmy Dean, but they forget that it's also someone like Jerry Page and Mike Nichols studied with my father, and Elaine May. Walter Matthau studied with my father, Julie Harris
from
the studio.
Very broad range of characters.
Yeah. So that, in other words, the acting style, the technique was viable for actors who present a wide range of impressions. It's for classical work as well as for realistic. A lot of people think it's just for very naturalistic work, which is not really true. It's a misconception.
Well, in fact, your father had a very funny statement about naturalism. He said, natural I can get on the street corner.
That's right.
We want real. What did he mean by that?
Well, he meant that anyone can just speak naturally, but to really act well, one has many other things happening. One might relive, for instance, Susan tells how when she was in Italy, it was real cold and she was warm in a scene that called for great heat, and they wondered, well, how did she do it? Or you had tears and real
40
tears.
takes in a row, they were all ready
And they
with the
didn't
spray
need
guns.
chemical drops. So it's a technique. Acting is a craft.
Can anyone learn? Or is there an inborn gift that some people have?
I think it's both. I think some people have an inborn gift and they have talent that just takes off. And I have other students who come and to me and say, well, I don't think I have any talent, but I want to learn. And it's amazing what they can do. Anyone can learn
To
this
some
technique.
extent.
Yes.
And the technique is useful. The kind of exercises that Stanislavski, Vartongov, and then my father developed further, really, I think, are useful for writers, directors, for anybody involved in the creative process.
Well, actually, you can go beyond that, I think, because there is concentration, there's relaxation, there's an ability to improvise. I mean, I can't think of, well, any one of us who couldn't use that.
That's right, because if you look at corporate people who are training to prepare themselves to appear, politicians used to come, I won't mention names, to want to get coached by my mother, who had coached Marilyn Monroe. But if you want an example of the difference, really, between, let's say, natural and real, let's say someone like Dustin Hoffman, Pacino, that's real. It's realer than life. It's full. But if you watch a lot of television, a lot of episodic television, because there's no time, people are natural. By that I mean they kind of talk like that. Everyone's very nice, except who cares? Jimmy Dean did a lot, made certain kind of movements and gestures, which a generation of actors after him imitated, kind of, looking. But when Jimmy Dean did it, it was filled. It came from a need to hide something he was feeling. If you just hang your head and you have nothing to hide, it's an affectation.
Right. How do they get out of the character? That was something I started to ask you about.
I tell that in the book Strasberg's Method in great detail in the affective memory chapter, where they just concentrate on something else. Because so much of our work is relaxation and concentration. They concentrate on maybe something good, like the feel of the warm sunshine, and again, they relax
so that you can leave
so they
the
can
character.
get out of it and leave it.
A baseball,
Right.
an athlete, anyone who does something that's very intense has to almost have that moment or minutes of transition where you kind of, somebody described Clint Eastwood directing and said he changed his personality totally between being behind camera and on camera.
Well, first of all, when my father worked with people, I can only speak personally. For instance, a woman like Geraldine Page, who was a great actress and was already a star when she came to work with my father. But she tended to play very neurasthenic, kind of, kind of wispy and nervous, very busy. And she said, well, I don't want to play these kind of parts till I die. It would be boring. And if she'd been in England, she might have been able to play the whole range. Here people get typecast. So my father worked with her on focusing and containing the power that she had. So he even tied her hands down at one point so that she
Couldn't move her hands.
So she couldn't move until she actually had a need to move. Now that's not something, that's also part of his genius. I don't know that that's something you could tell anyone to do. In other words, how you use the particular tools, and they are tools, that Lorrie and I are talking about is, you give 10 people a hammer and or 10 people a piano and teach them to play a piece, but only one is going to be Toscanini. You can't give, my father used to say, look, you cannot give that, what did he say? He said a great actor with no training is still going to be better than a bad actor with all the training in the world. You have to acknowledge that there's a gift that God gives you, but that, let's say Geraldine might have had a much more limited career. Suddenly she was now able to play Sweet Bird of Youth and big classical parts, which totally changed her life at that period. A girl, for instance, like Jane Fonda.
Yes, Jane Fonda had many...
I think credits my father...
because she had many mannerisms and habits that Lee was able to break.
A woman like Sally Field, I remember her fighting with my father. She hadn't been trained from the word go. She was already a star, as was Marlo Thomas when she went east and studied with my dad. But with Marlo, what she got was depth, because that girl was, it was
not
nice,
as deep
but
as other work,
wasn't raisin bread. So, Sally Field had done the nun, the flying nun. I started saying singing nun, and I knew it was the wrong nun.
And then the flying nun.
And so she was talented, but she was cute and kind of so cute that nobody was hiring her and no one wanted to. And I can remember my father, yelling at her and saying, "Darling, you are adorable. I don't want to see cute. I don't want to see adorable." And the tools that he gave her, the exercises, which are in Lorrie's book, I actually have seen her use in some of the performances when she played the schizophrenic. I could see her doing something like the animal exercise, where you create an animal internally and externally. And what happened was, because I think she had someplace to put her concentration, she was able to get her ego out of the way and allow parts of herself to show that maybe they didn't want to see when she did the Flying Nun. They would have said, what are you doing? No, this is life. We're doing this at 6:30 dinner time. We don't want to upset anyone or, challenge anybody.
So part of the work is that full concentration. We say that stage fright's a lack of concentration. If the actor learns techniques to concentrate on what concerns him in the role and concentrates on the right things.
You want to know something? It's true. But it's not, I'm not sure that the fear is just lack of concentration because I get stage
Well,
fright.
I think when
so,
when Lee
Oh,
said
Tara.
that, I think he meant it's okay to have a few flutters and have your juices going,
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
to begin. But also, you concentrate on the right things as a character. You don't worry about
You
who's
don't
out
fall
there
into you, in
watching
other
you. You may have specific thoughts as a character. You know,
You do it yourself.
Right.
What do you think of the Method Film Festival and maybe method acting in general?
Well, it's the only kind. I mean, it's really remarkable that this festival has taken hold so well, and that it supports the actor, which has somehow become lost for in technology and special effects, and the advance of technology has reduced the role of the actor. And I think that this is a wonderful thing, because at the heart of all great performances is the actor. That's what's essential, the human experience. And anything that celebrates the human experience and the actors who can do it, I'm in favor of. I think the critical aspect of any actor's adventure has to be training. That acting is not a joke. You require the same kind of skills that a musician does. I mean, you wouldn't pretend to be a musician, because if you walked into an office and said, I'm a musician, they say, play. Well, unfortunately, you can walk into an office and say you're an actor, and you can read something and you can fool people, but acting is a craft and it needs training.
This is Shelley Winters. Lorrie Hull's teaching and book of the Method is the best I've ever seen since Lee Strasberg. Lorrie teaches you how to work with the method deeply and with great effect. And it's the beginning of very good careers for lots of young people.
You will see demonstrated a representative group of important acting exercises, as well as effective memory training, physical actions, playing the inner action or intention, and scene work. Ms. Hull's book, Strasberg's Method as Taught by Lorrie Hull, a practical guide for actors, teachers, and directors, provides the theoretical foundation for this work in a way that's not possible for us to do here. But we believe that the practical experience you will see here will greatly enhance any reading you might do. We suggest that the best way to use these tapes might be in approximately 20-minute segments, either for individual work or for class work.
And Chapter 6 has exercises, theater games, and role-playing techniques for youth and untrained people who come to our classes and the workshops that I teach abroad and in the U.S. And to help me with this exercise, I've asked my grandson, Brendan Gillespie, to be here. Welcome, Brendan.
Thanks.
Now, Brendan and I know the 5 lines of this. On workshops and for new people, I often pass out these sheets. So, Brendan, I want to decide first the place for this scene that we're going to do, the 5 lines and then the improvisation. Have you decided the place?
Yeah, let's make it my bedroom.
Okay. And what am I doing in your bedroom?
You can be checking your email.
Oh, yes, I do that frequently.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to create the place where we both are surrounded by the 4 walls of his bedroom. Now, what is our relationship to each other? Do you want me to be your grandma or someone else?
You can, yeah, why don't you just be my grandmother?
Okay. If he had said someone else, I would have had him do another technique, which is called personalization. When he looked at me, he'd see his friend or cousin. But to begin with, it's easier just for the actors to be themselves. And also, I would give Brendan the instructions that I always give new people, and that is, in acting, we have objects of concentration. In this exercise, I want you to substitute a time from your own life when you felt the way you want to feel in the improvisation we're going to do at the end of the 5 lines. This exercise shows the importance of the subtext behind the lines and the importance of the given circumstances, which is what happened before the lines. So I'd like to have you walk away, and you've decided the situation.
Yep.
Good. So walk away and close your eyes and substitute from your own life a time when you felt personally the way that you're feeling in this situation. And I'm going to be doing what Brendan suggested. I'm going to be looking at my email on his computer until he comes in. And when he comes in, we will start the scene. Improvisation is important in our work because all acting should be as if it's happening for the first time, and in our improvisation training, it is. And people can then apply that to memorized lines.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine.
Well, what happened today?
Nothing much. Jeter was hit by a car.
Oh, no.
He was hit by a car today, and he died.
Oh, I love that little dog.
I know, me too.
How did it happen, Brendan?
We were talking to someone on the sidewalk. We had the leash, and we weren't paying attention to him. And the leash stretched out, and he ran in the street, and...
Oh, I'm so sorry. I know you must just feel terrible.
I know, it's...
Okay, now we're going to do this scene again, and this time I want Brendan to have a different situation behind the lines for the subtext. Hopefully something happy and elated. Usually I have new students end with a happy note. So Brendan, you can go out again, substitute a time from your own life when you really felt this way. I tell girls, teen girls, that when they want to feel really good, they can remember a time they had their first wonderful doll or jewelry they wanted. I tell boys it can be their first guitar or bike or motorcycle or whatever, or something good that happened. Again, I am looking at my email on Brendan's computer.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine.
Well, what happened today?
Nothing much.
Well, I'm glad you're looking happy.
You know the Western song, the one I wrote?
Yes, I love your songs that you put your poetry to the music.
Yes,
and
well,
this is one.
I was at McCabe's, and it just so happened that the owner of Columbia Records was there, and he saw this. He looked at it. He asked me if I had any other songs, and I played them for him on the guitar. And he
wow.
he asked me if I had a band, and I said I did. So he suggested I come into Columbia. He set a date, and that for maybe a couple record deals with them for me.
Oh, Brendan, terrific! Oh God, I'm so happy for you.
I know,
That's just wonderful.
I know. I mean, I didn't know he was going to be there, and he just shows up, and here I am. I mean.
So now, are you and your band going to play more of the songs of the poetry that you set to music?
Oh yeah, it's going to be all of my stuff.
Oh, your dreams have come true.
I know.
For many years, I have had a real passion to demystify the method. I taught for Lee Strasberg for 12 years, and then I taught at the American Film Institute, and when my daughter was discovered by Elia Kazan, I followed him around when she did a movie for him and when she did a play, picking his brains, because I think he's such a wonderful director. And he would take Diane and me, she's also my co-teacher in Santa Monica, he would take Diane and me into his dressing room or his trailer and explain to us why he did what he did or the directions he gave. So in my book, part 3, directing, is mostly Elia Kazan. Now, we were able to demystify the method, so to speak, because we believe that the method is based on modern psychological discoveries of behavior and procedures. And it's all based on Stanislavski of Russia, who was familiar with Pavlov and the experiment of the dog salivating when the bell rang, and Ribot of France, who coined the word effective memory, which is interchangeable with emotional recall. And we're demonstrating all that on our second video, because as I said in the panel earlier, effective memory is used when there is a problem. We have many techniques, and lots of times people train with us and they never use effective memory. We use it when they want to or when there's a problem. When my daughter was in Aloha Bobby and Rose, she had to cry 14 times on cue. Well, the first few times, maybe your juices are going and you can cry on cue, depending on what's happening. But after that, sometimes you need a technique, and effective memory is one technique. When I directed the Zoo story, a man who wasn't ticklish had to laugh on cue every night of performance. And so we did an effective memory for laughter. Effective memories aren't always agony. Sometimes it's for joyous events too. Now, having said that, also Strasberg always used to say, method acting is what good actors have been doing for 2,000 years. And indeed, the old Greek actor, and Susan Strasberg writes about this in the forward to my book, carried the ashes of his dead son on stage in an urn so he would feel the genuine emotion. But we don't need to do that anymore because we have these modern psychological techniques that we can use. But it all depends on the actor using himself, which is what Strasberg meant. You are the instrument. You use yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Because what do you know about yourself? And now I'm going to quote my husband a little bit in an answer he made to an email. And I thought it was so good I wrote it down. A man wrote and said, well, I don't want to use my own emotions. I want to just use the character's emotions. And Bill answered, well, then you're in trouble. Because what emotional life do you have but your own? Granted, you can add your imagination to whatever is happening, but the basis is yourself. Boleslavsky explained that so well in the first 6 lessons when the actress asked, how can I kill someone when I've never killed anyone? He said, use what you know, like a mosquito buzzing around, hit it, and then add to it with your imagination. But again, whose imagination do you have but your own? And every experience in your life is nestled there in your subconscious and can be tapped and can be used. You can't have the emotion of John F. Kennedy or Robert De Niro or your best friend. You are the instrument. You are the clay that has to be molded. And the man that I said I followed around a lot also used a technique called interactions or intentions. And we have many techniques like a narrative monologue where you speak out your thoughts, as well as what I explained earlier, the sensory work where you really feel heat, and many techniques which I wrote 350 pages about in my book, and I'm not going to go into them then. I've demonstrated these techniques in other workshops. So I want this workshop to be a little more advanced with Bill using the techniques that he uses for directing. But most of our texts lead to an actor being able to make alive and important to himself what is alive and important to the character. So we feel that our techniques that have evolved through the years, and we encourage each actor, each director, each teacher to evolve his or her own technique. And as I said in the panel, I wrote about that in Backstage West, December 11th, 1997, after I was at the Stanislavski conference as a master teacher in Paris. And I wrote, all of us there agreed, and Sidney Pollack, people from the Moscow Art Theater, Ellen Burstyn, Susan Strasberg, myself, many of us, we all agreed that we have the same goal, a believable, truthful acting, but how you get there is up to you. You may study with many teachers, you may experience and explore many different techniques, and the path you take is what works best for you, and we all evolve our own methods. So in closing, I want to say that today's actors are so fortunate that people like Stanislavski, Vakhtangov, who was a wonderful director and student of Stanislavski, Strasberg, Kazan, Bill, myself, Adler, Meiser, all the people who evolved from Stanislavski have developed a craft. So actors no longer need to work on a hit or miss basis or depend on the fickle muse of inspiration. Because besides, inspiration doesn't always come 8 performances a week for the stage, or on the set early in the morning, or on the location, anytime for that matter. And that's where we use the technique. So finally, acting has become a craft and an art. I will be talking about effective memory more as I guide these people. Effective memory was first coined by Ribot of France, the French psychologist. And he found that an individual could relive the effects of an event in one's life if the individual relived the event. Stanislavski was familiar with Ribot's theories, and he determined that an actor could be the master of his own inspiration and how to call it forth. In her acting training, Annie and I have agreed she's going to build a repertoire of effective memories, because even if a person tried 100, think if one had 6 that really worked, 6 different emotions that one could just turn a button.
You know, people started to stare at me, Frank. They started to stare at me, and this lady came over to me, and she said, you know, lady, I think you really should be careful not to inhale too much of that fabric softener.
Or you might say, press a button or turn a key.
Frank! What is it? What are you trying to say? And the laundromat owner, he says to me, lady, if you don't stop screaming at your wash, I'm gonna call the police.
And you work on the sensory steps, so you get to the point where the key or the button can be a word, a sensation, or knowing what the situation is. An example of 2 actresses who pressed a button 14 times on cue to cry, because that was what their director wanted, and we encourage our actors to give the director what the director wants. We encourage our directors to let the actors show them their choices. And I always say, don't have long drawn-out discussions, just say, show me, because sometimes actors come up with wonderful, creative choices that if it fits the director's point of view, he or she'd be crazy not to use it. So in this case, the director rigidly wanted crying when the mother and daughter said goodbye to each other, and this was Martine Bartlett and Diane Hull, both actors studio members who were well trained in effective memories. And it wasn't their fault that they had to cry 14 times on cue. Things kept going wrong technically in the park, like a plane overhead or whatever. But they were able to do it. just like Anita was able to do it for Ang Lee. I think she did it 6 times when she threw herself into the river hysterically. And she, was very impressive. So I say that affective memories are for the advanced work and the trained people. And we encourage you to, if you do one, be directed by a director or teacher who knows what they're doing. And just to be sure they know what they're doing, in my book under affective memory, I have a teacher guidance section that, teachers who aren't too experienced or directors can use that if they want. Now, having said that, I also have done affective memories with untrained people many times. One example was when, or has been, when my husband and I, or my daughter and I, do 2-day seminars for other people or in other cities. Practically, all over the world in the past, but recently just in other cities in the United States. And near the end of our session, I will ask people who have not done this work before to volunteer and come up, and I'll guide them in affective memory. And I usually can count on like 3 out of 4 coming through. The 4th one probably didn't come through because he or she didn't relax completely at the beginning. That's the name of the game. Relax, clear yourself, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Or maybe the person got too tense in the performance atmosphere and went to the end result, which isn't good either because the sensory steps are cumulative and one should work on those. So another example of guiding affective memory with the untrained have been when I've directed for television or stage or been an acting coach. I remember staying real late on one set to work with the person because the shoot wasn't until the next day. Sometimes you have to work real fast, and then we use substitution techniques, as you saw these people do and you saw me do with Annie. But one example was when I directed 100 people in Fiddler on the Roof. And I want to particularly mention that because I believed that for these 100 people, each one should create a life for the character and a biography. And the one that I directed in affective memory was a young girl playing Hava. When she and her father said goodbye to each other, and they were never going to see each other again in their lifetime, she was moving to the U.S., he cried each time. He had been in my university acting class. I was a professor at one time. And he had also been in plays I directed where we had used affective memory, such as the Zoo Story. This was Bud Caldwell, and his partner in the Zoo Story was Howard Mothy. And again, he couldn't laugh on cue. Jerry tickled Peter, and Peter's supposed to laugh, for those of you who know the script. And so we did an affective memory for Howard, who's a wonderful actor, and he laughed on cue every time. But getting back to Fiddler on the Roof. Hava and I worked long and hard, and sometimes directors have to do that if they don't have an acting coach that'll do it for them, to find an affective memory so she too would be moved saying goodbye to her father. We finally found one, and I think she went way back in her childhood where she had polio and she was carted off alone and her parents had to leave her. And it was similar, a parallel situation, but it worked. And so every night on cue, she would sob, as would her father, and the audience would sob with her. They really wept with her. They were very moved. And the dean, I remember the college where I was teaching at the time, it wasn't a college production, it was an adult regional production, but the dean said, well, he'd never been so moved, and he wept too. So this was a parallel situation. But sometimes, as from the story of the murder in Mosquito, you cannot find parallel situations. In those cases, Strasberg said, it doesn't make any difference what you use, just so it stirs the proper degree of belief and the proper behavior suitable for the character and the script. Now, many actors have to be led to create experience and reality. But once they can, well, then they have a good technique. Going back just a little bit, I took time out for our effective memory people. Going back just a little bit, I just want to mention another thing that Robert De Niro mentioned to the classes was that he observed behavior a lot. And did I say this? He walked around his apartment sometimes as a character? I guess I did, okay. I won't repeat it. In preparation, people can do this, however. When an actor prepares before entering on the stage or before the shoot, one can relax off the set or backstage or wherever. Relaxation is the name of the game, to clear oneself, and then do the sensory and emotional work, and then finally think the thoughts as the character. As far as effective memory work is concerned, I want to talk just a little bit about going back 7 years. We advise people to go back 7 years so they will be able to terminate the emotion better, and it will also be more consistent. Okay, now this is Deborah. Deborah, can you tell me what you feel against your skin?
I feel soft.
Socks?
Soft.
Soft. And what kind of soft? Can you be more specific? Is it cotton, nylon, silk?
It's cotton.
Okay. And is it a bra, panty? Can you be as specific as possible?
It's a pink blanket.
Okay. Are you nude under the pink blanket?
No.
So what do you have right against your skin then besides the blanket?
I have on a shirt, and I have on jeans. And
So you feel the jean material?
I do.
Do you have panties under the jeans?
Yeah.
Do you feel the material of the panties? The elastic, the nylon, cotton?
Yeah.
Stuff? Okay, good. And what about your shirt? What material is that?
It's like a nylon turtleneck.
Okay. Short sleeve or long?
Long sleeve.
Okay. And you can feel where the turtleneck comes on your neck and the
Yes,
long sleeves to your wrist?
Just under my chin.
All right. And you can feel the bare skin of your hands and your face as opposed to where the clothing is?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else that you feel against your body?
I'm leaning against the pink blanket, and I feel my hand resting on it.
Is a pink blanket a cotton, a wool?
It's a cotton blanket.
Okay. Anything else?
I'm on my knees, so I feel the pressure on my knees.
And are you on a rug, a linoleum?
I'm on a rug. I'm kneeling.
And is it a short rug,
It's a beige rug, and it's
short hair,
short,
or plush? What?
plush rug. Yeah.
Okay, sort of soft.
I'm leaning against a bed,
Okay.
and I'm touching the pink blanket.
And your knees are on the plush rug. What color is that rug?
Beige.
Light, dark, medium?
Medium.
Try to be as specific as possible.
Medium
Okay.
beige.
All right. Anything else you feel against your body? Can you tell me the temperature in the room? If you feel like crying, just cry through your answers. It's all right. Just let yourself cry. What's the temperature of the room?
It's cold in the room.
Okay. Do you feel that cold?
Yes.
Would you say it's 50, 60? Can you guess?
It's probably about 60.
Okay, because in our effective memory, as well as when we create a place, the climate and atmosphere is very important. Okay. Do you taste anything?
No, I don't taste anything.
Smell anything?
Yes.
What do you smell? Just talk through your tears. It's okay.
Such a bad smell. It's like urine and death. It's just, it's so.
And you can smell that.
I can smell it.
Okay, keep that going. Keep that going. You don't taste anything. You don't have a dry mouth. Okay.
No, I feel kind of a hollow feeling in my throat.
Okay. Okay. Let that be there. Keep all this going. Everything is cumulative. If you notice, we do one sensory step at a time, and then you keep that going as you do another one. And if one of the sensory steps leaves her, we expect her to attempt to regain it. That's part of the craft of acting, being aware when a sensation leaves you or a reality leaves you and then attempting to regain it. Okay? Do you hear anything?
I hear my breath.
All right. All right. Keep hearing that. And do you see anything besides the floor and the bed and the pink blanket? Can you verbalize what you see?
I see my brother.
Okay. In what position is he?
He's lying down.
All right. Are you kneeling beside him?
Yes.
Are you touching him?
I can't touch him. I'm touching the pink blanket.
All right. All right. Okay. Can you speak out your thoughts and feelings? It seems to be working quite well, doesn't it? So just speak out your thoughts and feelings now as if you're in this situation. You're reliving this situation. Speak out your thoughts and feelings.
My feelings are very... I feel so afraid that he's gonna die.
Okay.
He's so thin. So thin.
Okay.
And he smells so bad.
Okay.
I just want to pick him up.
All right. You don't try to do it though, but you want to.
I want to.
All right. Okay. Now, did you fuse this affective memory with any lines or improvisation from something?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so we'll just stop it. If she did this again in another class, we would probably do some of the steps I said. I'd have her keep her going through physical activities, and then another time I'd have her keep her going through an improvisation, another time where she says the lines, until finally she would be able to work silently and just do it.
All that mattered was that we get home. Home to our parents. Away from all this. This! Please! God, no more. No more. Do you hear me? I am a Methodist. Do you hear me? I am a Methodist. And I don't want to die. I want to get away from here. Decay. We'll get home. We'll get home.
Okay. I'm going to ask you not to clap. Okay, Anita, that was fine work, thank you. Anita was in my class working on affective memories when I was teaching for Lee Strasberg many years ago. And she was doing a film for Ang Lee, one of the first films, I think. And she had to play the part of a girl who committed suicide, was hysterical, and threw herself into the river. And one of the other teachers was walking by, Jeannie, and she came all excited. She's out of control, she's out of control. I said, no, she isn't. She trusts me and I trust her. She can get out of it by using our techniques whenever. Well, this other teacher became so upset that I went up to Anita and I said, okay, Anita, now use our techniques for getting out of it. And this is something I evolved, probably other teachers use it too, but I'm not aware of it. Where she relaxes again, and she concentrates on something very pleasant, like warm sun or a shower on her body, or a pleasant, happy situation to get out of it. I'm going to stop just for a few minutes here and ask my former student, who is now a big-time filmmaker, Kirk Harris, to talk to you about how he learned affective memory in our classes and how he applies it as an actor and director. Kirk was the star and also wrote the wonderful movie that they showed last night. And in his first movie, The Loser, I was so pleased that he came into class with his partner and worked on the scenes, because he, I think rightly, could use a second and third eye, Diane's in mind, because Kirk was the writer, the director, the producer, the actor, everything, weren't you, Kirk? And he did win the first breakout award, the first Best Actor breakout award here at the Method Film Fest 2 years ago. So Kirk, if you'll just talk briefly, and then when I come back, I'll invite our last effective memory person here. Okay?
Well, obviously Lorrie is a wonderful teacher who I studied with for several years. And I think something very important she said is that often people will train with the same method, the same coaches, the same people, and will work very differently. And everybody else has different strengths. Certain things work for different people, and they work differently. I work very, very strongly with effective memory, personalizing things. I take an approach where I like to rehearse a lot. I definitely take characters out in public, much to the chagrin of some people. And I find that really works for me. However, one of the good things about doing this kind of training is that very often you work with actors who work very much strictly off the cuff. They play themselves. They're not willing to go there emotionally. So you have to come up with your own thing because they're not there. They're not present. And very often you have to try to give them a performance as well, which is very interesting in coverage of a film, that you do everything on your side as well to help them. One of the things that I think a lot of people mess up on effective memory is that they don't use it sensorially. That we all go, oh, I remember when I cried when my dad died or something, and so you're thinking about crying, and as a young actor I would do that. Oh, I'm gonna cry, I gotta cry, I gotta cry, and instead of just really sticking with the senses of, I'm very visual, so what was I seeing? What was the colors? What was going on? Where was I? What was I wearing? And you start remembering things you're amazed that you can remember them, and as it becomes stronger and stronger. And then, what did you hear? Was it over the phone? Was it this? Was it that? The voices, the people that were there, how they're affected. And I find myself going off on little junctures of different pockets of things. And as through preparation now, I used to do a lot of theater work. Now I only do film, because that's just my focus. And the beauty of effective memory on film is, of course, film is shot entirely out of order. It's completely insane. You're working, 20 hours a day sometimes, and you're exhausted, and it's psycho, and finally, one of your big scenes comes up on the 18th hour, and, everybody is there to distract you in a way, and so your concentration has to be utter, it really has to be focused, and I think the training that Lorrie helped me with really helps me for that.
The concept of effective memory is in most of the arts, literary, music, painting. Marcel Proust in Swann's Way does brilliant writing about effective memory. His main character is drinking a concoction of lime tea, dips a little Madeleine petite cake into it, and he has an overpowering sense of joy. And he remembers this is what he used to drink in his childhood, and the same effect occurs for him. I want to just speak briefly before closing about some people are afraid to do this intense emotional work. And we understand that there are so many other techniques they can do. One example of a person afraid, and again I'm quoting Lee Strasberg, is a man who studied with him in the old group theater and then was in a play for Lee, a very well-known acting coach, by the way. And he could not get the emotion he wanted or the emotion that Lee wanted him to get. And he came to Lee and asked for Lee's help, and Lee said, well, the only thing that I can think of would be to do an effective memory. We've tried all these other techniques. So Lee did an effective memory with him, and he's said this many times to many people in classes. It was the best acting he ever did, and I think he would agree with that. But there were certain aspects of his life, particularly in those days, that he didn't want to face or dig deep into, and so he didn't really want to do any more affective memories. And we respect that if people feel that way. Once Shelley Winters asked Lee, is it affective or effective? And Shelley was told, well, it's affective. And the amazed Shelley said, oh, I thought it was effective because it's so effective. Yes.
I'm not opposed to it, but you always hear about people who are opposed to effective memory. I just wanted to hear your answer to it when people say that it's unhealthy and all that kind of stuff.
My answer is, if one goes back, please listen because I think they're taking this too. If one goes back at least 7 years, then it's easier to get out of it and terminate it, and I don't really think it's unhealthy. As a matter of fact, I have had psychologists call me and ask me to do affective memories with their patients because they couldn't get through any other way. On the other hand, there are so many other techniques we can use, like the substitution that I showed you, that if someone doesn't want to do it, in our classes we never force them to do it, ever. Sometimes, if someone has studied with us for a while, and I think it's time they build a repertoire, we might nudge them. Or if someone brings in a script and they're just not getting what they or the director want, we might suggest they try an affective memory. But most of the time, they have to ask us to do it. There's so many other techniques that we respect it if they are afraid of digging that deep into themselves. One other point I want to make is if they block themselves in one area, usually an actor will block themselves in other areas. So we try to open the actor and have them lose their inhibitions and have them open for whatever is needed as the character. Sometimes we teachers check the relaxation. This is good. If her arms stayed up, she would be too tense. But it didn't. Checking it, you see. And if you see the DVD, you'll see I check people all the time, and a lot of people who live away or come to study with us later work along with the DVD because it's a half hour of relaxation. It's so important. And you see, she's placid here. Think of all the tension going between your eyebrows down the side of your face and out. Now open your eyes and slowly droop them closed. Let all the tension go out. And then have a big healthy yawn to, relax. That's it. Now another area that is sometimes tense is the neck. So we check the neck. This is pretty good. Okay, are you ready to do the sensory steps? Sure. Okay. Now, the sensory steps are the 5 senses. And we guide people who usually start with what they feel next to their body. So when you relive the situation, you relive the event, we ask, well, what do you feel next to your body? What clothing?
I feel a cotton t-shirt next to my body.
And it's short-sleeved?
Yes.
Do you feel the difference from where the material ends and your bare arm begins? Do you feel that difference?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if she says no, it's okay. Sometimes we just go on, and if something isn't working, we don't let it be an obstacle. Because we go on because there are plenty of other things that can work. Okay?
Yes.
And do you feel your panties?
I do, but they were cotton, not silk.
That's all right. All right, let it be cotton. Do you feel cotton next to your thigh?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Okay. And what do you feel on your feet?
Socks.
All right. Lightweight cotton?
Heavy socks.
Okay.
Fuzzy socks.
Okay. And you feel them on the floor, your feet?
Yes.
Let yourself laugh as you talk. It's okay. It's okay. Sometimes it works early, And what kind of floor do you feel them on? Wood?
I feel hard floor and stop touching a hard floor.
Okay, similar to this floor. Okay.
Yes.
Any odors or smells?
You mean besides the restaurant?
Yes, I mean where what you're recreating.
Yes.
What we try to have you do is put aside what's happening really and just relive the situation that you're recreating. So the smells in your kitchen.
Potpourri.
Okay. And that's working? Okay. Did you taste anything?
Coca-Cola.
Okay. Okay, fine. Now tell me what you see. As if you're seeing it now, as if it's happening again. What do you see?
I see me.
You see yourself in a mirror? Okay. So what do you see when you see me?
I see me just hanging my hands down.
Okay.
And I see my little cat with the lip up like this. And I see my shirt. And I feel like I have a big smile on my face and on my shirt too.
Okay. Anything else? Laugh as you tell me. Anything else?
At first I look silly in the mirror.
What do you hear?
I hear my husband.
Can you say the words you hear?
He goes, "This is what I have to live with." This is what I have to live with.
Okay. Anything else that you hear?
Well, what are you going to say to that?
Okay.
My cat.
So now I'm going to have her fuse it with lines from the monologue she did. And the monologue, she held up two dolls, a male doll and a female doll. And she's talking to a group of kindergarten children. So you can imagine the two dolls. When you're ready, just keep laughing and fuse it with this kindergarten teacher situation. Okay.
Open my eyes. Do you want me to open my eyes?
Yes, you're seeing all these kindergarten children down below here. On the floor in
On
front
the
of you.
floor. Oh.
You see all of them?
Yes.
Okay.
They're wondering what's up with their teacher. This is Bill. You know Bill. And this is Jill. And they want to have a meaningful relationship. And so do I. And so do you. And that's why we're here. We're here to have our class. And that's how come today we're studying biology, psychology, philosophy, and sex education. And those poor kids think I'm crazy. Because I am! I'm your crazy kindergarten teacher! That's your break! And so is it time for recess? Let's go.
Okay. Okay. Now, could you hear her okay then? Okay. This is a sample of teacher guidance. Now, she hadn't done an effective memory for a long, long time because I think it was almost 10 years ago that she came to, maybe not quite that long.
Not quite, but
that she came to Santa Monica to study with me that year. And we were so pleased that UNO gave her credit for acting, directing, creative drama, and I think practice teaching. I think there were 4 classes. And of course she got A in all the classes. Usually when people come for school board credit or teaching or university graduate, undergraduate, they usually work very hard and they get A's. I mean,
And Lori, you know, afterwards I also did the Always Patsy Cline show.
That's right.
And won the Big Easy for that, and no one could believe that I used this technique for that because it was just singing 24 solos.
Yes.
But yet I felt that if each song was like a monologue, and I would use effective memories in my singing
Absolutely.
to be more effective and focus more on the delivery of the song rather than the vocals.
Maybe you saw it. She did Patsy Cline for Southern Rep. It was wonderful. And Barbara Streisand studied with Strasberg, and he said that her singing was much more full and real feeling after she studied with him.
Oh, yeah.
Lainey Kazan studied with him. Roseanne Cash studied with me. And I felt that she was getting more feeling into her singing before she won those gold,
Definitely.
those gold records. So it works in music too.
You're just willing to risk more.
That's right.
I find
That's right.
you just have to let it go. You give it up. What are you gonna do? You're gonna sit here trying to control? You look like a fool anyway. You know?
And that's part of the acting training, to dare to take chances, to dare to risk. You do that in class and in training, because when you're on a professional job, you have to produce for that director and producer and give them what they want. Another technique, or techniques I might say, that Diane and I use in our teaching, and Bill uses it too, is techniques we learned from Elia Kazan. We think he has been one of our finest directors ever. And fortunately, my daughter Diane was discovered by him, and he cast her as Kirk Douglas's daughter in the arrangement, and then at the New York Actors Studio, he wrote a play and he wrote a role for her, which they performed in New York and also at the Hartman in Connecticut. And we were privileged to be able to follow this great director around and pick his brains. He knew we wanted to learn from him. And so when there would be a break, he'd invite us into his office at Warner's, or into his trailer when he was on location, and he would explain to us the techniques he was using and why, if he put his arm intimately around Kirk Douglas and whispered something to him, because Kazan was a great one to just intimately give directions, he would tell us what it was and what he was trying to get Kirk to do. And he also said that one of his best techniques is for the actor to play the inner action or intention. Now, the inner action is what the actor wants. And Kazan gets his actors to really, really, really want whatever it is. It can be described in active verbs: to confide, to love, to tell, whatever. And an example he used was his two actresses in A Streetcar Named Desire, who played Blanche. Jessica Tandy on Broadway, Vivian Leigh in the movie. And he got them to really, really want their inner action, which was to find a refuge from the world, to find protection. And Marlon Brando, as Stanley, of course, was their obstacle. And his inner action was to keep the status quo, and in order to do that, he had to get rid of Blanche. And Marlon also was a great one to changing some of his business on stage. It drove Jessica Tandy nuts. But he kept it fresh that way, and yet he always kept, according to Kazan, the intent of the playwright and the viewpoint of the playwright and the director. He never strayed from that.
Charles Dutton and Benita Fay, it's a pleasure for us to see this scene. Your professionalism, your emotional power, and your skill are very evident. Mr. Dutton got a Tony nomination for this role on Broadway, is that right, Charles? Um,
Long time ago.
The work of both of you is just excellent, and I feel there's probably very little, a few things that I could suggest, and they're not in a major, don't affect the scene in any major way. They're just some colors here and there that I think might add a little bit. Your truthfulness as an actor, your emotional power as an actor are wonderful, and I would only suggest that there are places where you did some of this, but I think there are places when you're trying to convince somebody of something, there are different ways. If you're not getting through, there are different ways you go about it. I mean, you could tell them what the hell the story is, and if that's not getting through, there's another approach. You reason, you try to look, for God's sake, you know, be reasonable about this. Now, you did that to a certain extent, but I think there are other places in the scene where you could try to take that, try to make her understand in a different kind of way. Try different things. Your feeling is all there. You never have to worry about it. Is it what I'm saying makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And another thing is the thing with the food is wonderful in the scene, Benita. I like that very much. But there are a few places where you're trying to tell her something and she's dealing with that food. And I think you got to do something more. If somebody's ignoring you about something important you're trying to tell them, you know, they're going back, putting bookshelves up on the book or something. I think you got to figure out a way to make them pay attention to you rather than just stand there and keeping on while they're seeming to ignore you. Do you understand what I mean there?
Sure.
Okay, well, I mean, we'll go through this as specific moments. This is very easy stuff for you. These are just colors. When you had this fairly long speech about the piano and what it meant and what somebody said, take lessons or play the, you know the part that I'm talking about? What is her feeling about this piano? I'm not sure what it is.
What is my feeling?
Yeah, what is her? What's her name?
Bernice.
Bernice. What is Bernice's feeling?
Mixed emotions. It's a family heirloom.
Yes.
And it's brought a lot of trouble into the family. And I don't want to really be bothered with it, other than my daughter playing on the piano occasionally.
But why is she so insistent that it not be sold? Why?
Because it's been in the family for a very, very long time. And the carvings on the piano are carvings of our family. And the family history is inside of this piano.
Great. That's great stuff. Just a color that I think we'll go over some of these. That's what I was thinking, that some of this was the back. I didn't quite see when you were, that piano really meant anything more than a stick of wood. Okay. You talked about it. But this is one of the things where we talk about substitution, which is a possibility. Here we have a school desk. I mean, it couldn't be more different than what you're talking about. But you, even in a production, although you have a piano, it would probably have carving on it, blah, 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 but you would still have the same task. That thing that they gave you may not be what in your mind, the kind of thing that you're talking about. You need to make of this stupid, plain thing, that. Now, that's not easy to do. How do you go about it? I look at this, and I'm not going to try to cross my eyes and pretend I see something that I don't. But as I'm looking back, I can think in a friend's home, I saw a piano, and it didn't look like this, and the arms of it were curved in a certain kind of way. The ladies had I'm trying. I'm not pretending. But I'm trying to see it without forcing. I am trying to see if I can simulate the feel of it without pretending that I am. But the very effort to do that in a real way begins to create a real thing. And if there's something, it doesn't even have to be a piano that you can think about that's a treasure or has some beauty or something.
I gotta sell you.
But let's go back. This is going well. Charles, I want you to mean specific things about that piano. You're looking at something about that piano. You say it's the finest thing in the world. Something comes to your imagination. A leg, even if it's not a piano, something is beautiful, something that you're looking at and you're talking about. Just keep going. Sorry, don't worry about it. Just keep going.
I can imagine that he didn't want to bang it up. He didn't want to bruise it. I bet you he covered it all up. I bet you he wrapped the legs, sheets, and pillows, and cloths, and blankets. You know, my daddy had to be a strong man to get this piano out of that house. Is that the way it happened, Wine Boy? You know something? Many is the time I looked at my daddy and seen him staring off at his hands.
Wait, I want to go back. It's going well. I want to go back. I want to go back from where you started, where you looked at him. Now, what you're doing now is okay. You're reverting to the way you prepared this. I wanted to come out of what you were doing before. Just stay with that. I know what I'm asking is not easy. You're trying to create something that isn't there, but we have to do this many times. And I saw feelings about it in your eyes and in your expression, which I'm not asking you to reproduce, I'm just asking you to go through the process.
Okay.
This is a beautiful thing and you remember many things about it, but you're going to have to do this anyway. Isn't that what this is about?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, you're going to have to do it.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And any reasonable person has to understand that. And I want the play dialogue as it begins to come out of that. Never mind what you did before, just for now.
Wine Boy. Many is the time I looked at my daddy and seen him staring off at his hands. I got a little older. And I know just what he was thinking. He's sitting there saying,
Just let it come from what's there right now, from what's there right now. What's the look on his face as he looks at you? Is he turning away from you? Is he agreeing with you?
I got these big old hands. But what am I gonna do with them? I got these big...
No, stay with what you had before. Stay with what you had before. I know I'm annoying you. Stay relaxed, Charles.
Okay.
Don't revert necessarily what you're doing before. He's standing right here.
I got these big old hands. What I'm gonna do with them? I got these big old hands capable of doing anything. I can take and build something with these hands. But where is the tools? All I got is these hands. Unless I go out here and kill me somebody.
Now keep going, Charles. I'm not asking that you do it any specific way. I just didn't want you to impose something that had come before. Anything that happens with you is fine. I don't want you to suppress anything.
Okay.
I don't want you to force anything.
Unless I go out here and kill me somebody and take what they got. It's going to be a long road to hoe for me to get something on my own. So what I'm going to do with these big old hands? What would you do? See, if he had his own land, he wouldn't have felt like that. If he had something under his feet that belonged to him, he could stand up taller. That's what I'm talking about. Hell, the land is out there for everybody. All you gotta do is figure out how to...
Wait. You're really talking to this guy. It's another thing convincing. You know what I mean? You reason with him, you can explain, think carefully. It's getting a little general. It's good. Your power is always there. I'm not worried about it.
Now, my only question to that is, I understand what you're saying. Okay, I'll try. See now, if he had his own land, he wouldn't have felt that way. If he had something under his feet that belonged to him, he could stand up taller. That's what I'm talking about. The land is out there for everybody. All you gotta do is figure out how to get you a piece. Ain't no mystery to life. One boy, if you got a piece of land, everything else will fall right into place. You can stand right up next to the white man and talk about the price of cotton, the weather, and anything else you want to talk about.
Okay, Charles, I'm going to stop there. Take a seat for a second. Now, what happened here, from my point of view, is that we began to see some different colors.
Yes.
Colors.
Yes.
Did it feel that way?
Yes.
Did this feel okay to you doing this?
Oh, without a doubt. You know, what I was going to say is that for me right now, it's actually this is great because it's difficult to, having done the play, albeit many years ago, it's still in me. Mm-hmm. So it's shedding all of that way, you know.
Yes.
I mean, nothing was wrong with that way, but it was still there was a certain it's that, as you guys know, that wonderful thing of coming back to something that you thought you had squeezed all the juice out of, but you find that there's still gallons and gallons and gallons left. So yes, that was
okay. So we're going to go on and do some more, but I will just point out to you your emotional power is wonderful and it is riveting, and it's a great asset to you on the stage, and people focus on you and are interested in you and are impressed by what you do. But there are other colors, other colors, and all we did was to start relaxed, try to create a little more of the reality, and let you explore a way other than you had done before, and other colors came along with what the others did. Now let's do the part of the scene.
Can I, I'm curious
Yeah.
if I can ask a question. When you were going to ask a question, what was that question you were going to ask?
When Bill said about being general, my question was, but this also goes back to the way it was played, that well, I don't want to say he, but that I have no
barometer.
Well, I have no etiquette about me, you know. That I speak loud, whether you know. I mean, that's the nuisance in him. You know, that it's not bombast, but that it's that she, you know, she constantly tells me and everybody else, boy, Willie, be quiet, boy, what, you know, boy, Willie, will you shut up, boy, Willie, you're waking up the neighborhood, you know. But still, that's, you can find color.
No, I'm glad you told me
that's
that,
what I was,
because I didn't know that. It's an important thing. You were paying attention to a character thing that you understood, and I don't. Nevertheless.
No, nevertheless, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's ways to do it without it.
It's just that there are other colors too.
Yes, that's sure.
You can do them and not forget the others.
Sure, absolutely. But that's what I was going to say.
And I was only curious because I wanted to understand more of what Bill was speaking of when he was saying it was too general, and I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding.
What I mean, general, was I got this sense at a particular moment, not all the way through by any means, that I'm mad here, so I'm mad, I'm going to talk mad. That's general. But if I'm trying to do something, I say, God damn it, man, you don't understand a goddamn thing I'm talking about, do you? Don't you? Sweetness and love on your face. I'm trying to do something both ways, but it isn't all one thing.
And saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Boy, Willie, you're going to play around with me one too many times, and then God is going to bless you, and West is going to dress you. Now sit that piano back over there now, boy Willie. I done told you 100 times. I ain't selling that piano.
I'm trying to get me some land. I need this piano to get me some money to buy Sutter's land.
Well, money can't buy what that piano cost. You can't sell your soul for money. It won't go with the buyer. It'll shrivel and shrink up to know that you ain't caught on with it, but it won't go with the buyer.
I ain't talking about all that, woman. I'm talking about trading that piece of wood for some land. Need something under your feet, Bernice. Land is the only thing God ain't making no more of.
Okay, stop. I think I in a way, I misled you before into thinking that you should do what I was suggesting here. I like what you were doing originally here.
But it has plenty of room. It has plenty of room to get.
Oh no, I know. I
that,
understand.
Yeah.
But I think we need here. Did before is that you decided.
Yes, I've decided.
This is going to be decided now.
Yes.
So there's a certain something in that.
Okay.
Listen, Louise. The time has come.
Okay.
That
okay.
I think that
okay.
was there, needs to be there.
Okay.
And then go from there.
So just from me throwing it over. Okay.
From
me going to do this.
And where was I?
Right before you said, "Boy, Willie."
You gonna get on my okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, Benita, this is good. Benita, I think you noticed this, don't you? What he's doing? Go ahead.
Boy, Willie, you're gonna play with me one too many times. And then God is gonna bless you, and West is gonna dress you. Now sit that piano back over there. I done told you 100 times. I ain't selling that piano.
I'm trying to get me some land, woman. I need this piano to get me some money to buy Sutter's land.
Money can't buy what that piano cost. You can't sell your soul for money. It won't go with the buyer. It'll shrivel and shrink up to know that you ain't taking on to it, but it won't go with the buyer.
I ain't talking about all that, woman. I ain't talking about selling my soul. I'm talking about trading that piece of wood for some land. Get something under your feet. Land is the only thing God ain't making no more of. You can always get you another piano. I'm talking about some land, what you get something out of the ground from. That's what I'm talking about. You can't do nothing with this piano but sit up there and look at it.
And that's just what I'm going to do. Whining boy, you want me to fry you some pork chops?
Now, I'm going to tell. Wait a minute, this is excellent. But this is, one of the things we want to do is, if he does something different, you have to respond to it. You know, not that's the way you're doing it. He's coming on strong here. And you mean what you say too. So you've got a little casual there. I think because you're doing that before.
Okay.
But this is what in rehearsal, I mean, if the other guy does something different, you know, you have to respond. That was excellent, excellent. Keep going from a couple of lines before where I stopped you.
I ain't talking about all that, woman. I ain't talking about selling my soul. I'm talking about trading that piece of wood for some land. Get something under your feet. Land is the only thing God ain't making no more of. You can always get you another piano. I'm talking about some land, what you get something out from the ground from. That's what I'm talking about. You can't do nothing with this piano but sit up there and look at it.
And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Whining boy, you want me to fry you some pork chops?
Now I'm going to tell you. Now I'm going to tell you the way I see it. The only thing make that piano worth something is them carvings Papa Willie Boy put on there. That's what make it worth something. That was my great-granddaddy. Now, Papa Boy Charles brought that piano into the house. I'm supposed to build on what they left me. You can't do nothing with the piano sitting up here in the house. That's just like if I let them watermelons sit out there and rot. I'd be a fool.
All right, Benin, how you got to handle this? This is more than you've seen before. This is what. How you got to handle it, Benin? That's what you got to be thinking.
All right. If you say to me, Boy Willie, I'm using the piano. I give out lessons on it, and that helped me make my rent or whatever, then that'd be something else. I'd have to go on and say, all right, Bernice using the piano. She building on it. Go on and let her use it. I gotta find me another way to get Sutter's land, but don't say you ain't touched that piano. The whole time it's been up here. So why you wanna stand in my way? See, you just looking at the sentimental value. Why, that's all right, Bernice. That's all right, that's good. I take my hat off whenever somebody say my daddy's name, but I ain't gonna be no fool about no sentimental value. Bernice.
Okay, stop. Excellent, 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 excellent work. That's you're not talking. You got to think how you're going to deal with it. And now I'm seeing it. It's before it was excellent. Now it's excellent plus. What can I tell you? It just has a little more variety because there's spontaneity in it. Now let's just do one more thing. I want to do that part where you're talking about that over there. You have that fairly long speech about the piano. You know where I'm talking about?
Coming right there.
So can you lead into that?
So I'll just give you from, I'm gonna take it out and sell it. Now the kind of man my daddy was. He would have understood that. Now, Bernice, I'm sorry if you can't see it that way. But that's why I'm going to take that piano out of here. And I'm going gonna sell it.
You ain't taking that piano out of my house. Look at the piano. Look at this piano! Mama Ola polished this piano with her tears for 17 years.
That's right. Make it a real thing now. It's going very well. Something precious for
For 17 years. She rubbed on it till her hands bled. Then she rubbed the blood in. Mixed it up with the rest of the blood on it.
Now, just gonna tell you something. When you touch this, you're touching what is real. I'm gonna ask you to imagine, not try to force it. You're touching something else, piano keys, something that you imagine. It's not really this, and a different thing may happen. But just keep going. Keep going. It's going very well.
For 17 years. She rubbed on it till her hands bled. Then she rubbed the blood in and mixed it up with the rest of the blood on it. Every day. Every day that God breathed life into her body, she rubbed and she cleaned and she polished and she prayed on it. Play something for me, Bernice. Play something for me, Bernice. Every day. Cleaned it up for you. Play something for me, Bernice.
Stay relaxed, stay at ease, stay physically relaxed. Take your time, take plenty of time.
You always talking about your daddy. But you ain't never stopped to look at what his foolishness cost your mama. "17 years with the cold nights and an empty bed. For what? Or a piano, a piece of wood, to get even with somebody."
Stay relaxed, Benita. Just let anything happen. Don't make anything happen.
You know, I look at you. You are all the same. you, Papa Boy Charles, Doka, Whining Boy, Crawley. Y'all alike. All this thieving and killing and thieving and killing. I ain't never seen it come to nothing but more killing and more thieving. Don't know. People getting burned up. People getting shot. People falling down their wells. It just don't stop.
Stop. Okay. We've done our work. Excellent.
Terrific.
Excellent. It was good to start with, and now it's even more alive, more colors. Did it feel all right to you?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's important for you to stay physically relaxed. This thing became alive today in a way that was not before. Meaning to you came alive in a way that staying relaxed and taking your time allows what's going on unconsciously to come out. If it's got to be exactly what it was before, then, you know, it's like this. But if it's like this, then what's there is going to come. It'll come in different little colors, and we saw many different colors. Beautiful, beautiful from the point of both of you. So it was a privilege to work with you and to see this scene.
Likewise.
And I hope life brings us into contact again sometime.
Faster with your work. Now, the noise that Joyce is making is one of our relaxation techniques. We encourage people to make noise to release tension or emotion. And sometimes when someone goes by a class, I say, we're not crazy, we haven't lost our marbles, it's just one of our relaxation techniques. It's also demonstrated on the video.
Something in my hand says something.
Anything else that's happening sensorially that you can tell us?
Light, woozy. I feel light.
You feel light, you feel woozy. All right, do you feel like you're ready now to fuse the affective memory with the lines from The Streetcar Named Desire? Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead with that.
Won't be the sort of thing you have in mind. This man is a gentleman, and he respects me. What he wants is my companionship. A cultivated woman, a woman of intelligence and breeding, can enrich a man's life immensely. I have those things to offer, and time can't take them away. Physical beauty is passing, a transitory possession. The beauty of the mind, and richness of the spirit, and tenderness of the heart. And I have those things to offer. I had to go to a funeral today. Oh, gosh darn it. This guy, Harold Steinem, he was my agent. Oh, I finally got an agent, and he died. Oh, and I hadn't even signed with him yet. I'm sorry, this is just not my day.
are the only instrument. Your total being is you. And by total being, we mean physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And in our acting, we try to break all inhibitions and get you back to that childlike quality where you are open for whatever is happening in your life. Now, I want to take just a short break from my presentation to talk to a very fine actor, the Deer Slayer, right?
Deer Hunter.
Deer Hunter, oh, excuse me. The Deer Slayer was an old novel by James Fenimore Cooper. Okay. The Deer Hunter, and I've known John for many years, even though I haven't seen him for many years, because he also did such wonderful acting in The Onion Field by Joseph Wambaugh, which I think is one of the finest movies ever, and I may be a bit prejudiced, but I really think it's just a terrific movie because my daughter Diane, who is also my co-teacher, played John's wife in that movie.
Perhaps there's this question: why do we have to work at a craft? I mean, we act every day. Exactly. So the idea of removing the acting part is like the general sort of concept of preparation.
And preparation is very important.
And preparation is very important.
Yes, I spent speak. That's on our first method video, which you bought the other night. You probably had time to look at it yet. But preparation includes relaxation, which has a half hour on it, to clear yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, so you're open for what concerns you as the actor.
Which you can't do when you're hired to go to a job and be on the set.
But you can do it when you do your homework at home.
But when you do your homework at home, and when you're, which I also is one of the reasons I said about the childlike attitude, we can be aware of things or mentally cognizant. How smoking is bad for us, but we're still smoking. The practice and work involved to remove certain thinking, actually, to allow ourselves to be able to be open to a new area of our own existence. It sounds like a big deal, but it's what a child has to do every day. Can
I break in here? I want to disagree with you with one point. because I have been an acting coach on sets. And I've directed over 200 plays and TV shows. And when I've been an acting coach, sometimes I just take the actor whom the director wants me to coach off into a corner, and I have him relax first on the set before I work with him.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's when as you begin to become familiar with technique of what a process that is working for you, you can do it in less than a second.
That's right.
You can let go.
That's right. I was backstage with Shelley Winters, and she relaxed and was thinking as a character and into the role in like 2 minutes because she had trained this way for years and years. So,
and by the same, it's good. By the same token, the life quality has drama, has antagonistic. We can disagree, but the idea of being open and agreeing to disagree is like in a process that it's practice. It takes practice. It's like I know I'm right. I've done something to stop my openness.
And I wrote an article for Backstage West after I was at the Stanislavski conference in Paris as a master teacher. And what we all agreed to there was, yes, we can disagree, but we're all working for the same truthful, believable behavior. And each teacher evolves his or her own method, and each actor evolves his or her own method. So what works for you might not work for another actor. You have found what works for you because I think you're a fine actor. Thank you.
And I guess my point about being able to work at a process that brings you to a childlike place, well, then you're vulnerable.
Yes.
And the tendency to become overwhelmed. Again, the method. I mean, I have a tendency to be afraid of people. I also get very excited around people. Yet, to keep a focus with my work, sometimes I have to do things for myself that are very self-centered. They may be considered violent or hostile, but I rarely have I directed anything towards another person. Excuse me, pointing. But I've found sometimes the amount of energy in a television set or a movie set, it can be very intimate and very, very comforting.
Yes.
You just feel just a good feeling of support. It's like a family you go to live with and work with. And you don't have to talk about stuff all the time. You just feel trust. And yet, there's that other kind of feeling that can happen on television where time is important, like I was saying, and everything is happening, and there's lots of energy around you. And people talking like this while you're trying to concentrate, and we're going to go now.
Right. That's why this technique is so beautiful, because we shut out all those people.
And those things are really rough.
Right.
I mean, it's like, wow, I'm not willing to really have you be that way with me right now. I have to be here. All right, cut. He's really out of it. All right, oh God, find another actor. The difficulty of dealing with that. It takes like anybody who gets experience with anything, being a parent or something, you get experience, but you still really don't always have control. And I mean control in the sense of making things work the way you want it. So the process, again, going back to keeping in mind technique and having a process, something that keeps your focus. But the thing that I also want to not forget is what the history of method shows when you're preparing for plays and things, that the incredible amount of complexities in human behavior.
That's right.
Whether it's a cultural behavior with thinking towards another human being, or because some people in cultures do not relate to other people right away. It's offensive to them to do that. You'll see body language in some cultures. Italian, of certain parts of Italy, certain ways of using your hands or something.
Yes.
Or in New York with a different attitude. I don't know, but
and that's why observation is so important. An actor observes other people in real life, like Robert De Niro worked out with Jake LaMotta and observed how to be a boxer,
right?
And snip. And another thing that John said that often helps an actor are the costume and makeup, so they feel more like the character. Or we have an exercise that was brought over from the Moscow Art Theater and Stanislavski called the animal exercise. And my husband, William Smithers, who won the World Theater Award on Broadway and also in Obie for the Young Poet and the Seagull. But in the World Theater Award show he won, he was playing Tybalt in Romeo and Juliet. And he was just a young kid, sloughing around. And one of the lines from Shakespeare was that Tybalt was the prince of cats. So he went to the zoo and observed a panther and was able to bring some of the panther movements into his character, the Italian Tybalt. And Lee J. Cobb, when he did Death of a Salesman, directed by Kazan, our mentor, by the way, used an elephant exercise, where even though he was a young, fairly thin man, friends who saw that have told me that he gave the impression of being a heavy, lumbering person with the weight of the world on his shoulders. Because every character you portray, there can be a little bit of yourself there. And you might add with your imagination or fantasy, but in my
this is why we have directors.
Yes, right.
Because you can really have too much fun with your imagination and your fantasy.
I don't think I told that. When Diane was a young girl of 18 and first came to Hollywood, she had been in an award-winning play that actually I had directed back in Wisconsin, and she did it at the Actors Studio, and people called her and said, come and audition for Kazan. which was wonderful. You know, he's one of our top directors. He had her do a mini affecting memory, or a substitution of emotion, where she was very angry with her father. And then he had her do an improvisation where she told her father off. And he cast her in the role. Sometimes we do improvisation work to discover behavior for the actors, and we improv on a scene for a director to discover what might be used. And we do a lot of improvisation work in our acting training because in the 200 shows I've directed, I've never allowed a prompt. This was a made-up scene. But sometimes we do improvisation work on a printed scene. And in the advice to actors, which I have there, for those of you who do not have my book, you're welcome to take the handout, I say how we work back and forth with the script and with improvisation, even though the play's the thing, as Shakespeare said. But we want to do improvisation work so no matter what happens in a scene, the actors are secure and they know they can improvise and get out of it. Be very careful about who guides you. Hopefully you can have a director or teacher who knows what they're doing when they guide you, which is why when I wrote this book, which I'm going to show here, which is why when I wrote this book, Chapter 5, Effective Memory, has a special section entitled Teacher Guidance, to help teachers and directors who want to guide people in this kind of work. I have seen too many who have abused it because, as I said before, once you do effective memory, then you just press a button and let it be there. But you're still very aware and have eye contact and you listen to the other actor. And some teachers have abused it by letting their students be as if they're underwater, or overindulge, or do it all the time. And it's an important technique, but it's a very small part of our training. Thanks to modern psychological discoveries and the dedicated people who have taught, explored, and used acting techniques that lead to truthful, believable behavior, acting has finally become a craft and an honorable art. Thank you for joining me in my passion to demystify the method.